Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making it here on a slightly messy day outside. I understand the roads are pretty bad, and we are still waiting for a few people to come in, but we'll go ahead and get the event started. I am Raju Balakrishnan. It is my privilege to serve as the Dean of the College of Business here at the University of Michigan-Dearborn. And I'd like to welcome you all to our second event focusing on talent. Today's event is titled Keeping Talent in Michigan, Preparing Our Workforce for Technological Change. And the title speaks for itself in terms of its importance. And it is particularly relevant for the University of Michigan-Dearborn because first, we are all about creating talent. And we have developed our curriculum, our programs, our experiential learning opportunities, and we were talking earlier about our co-op opportunities and internship focus, all with the mindset of not just preparing students for jobs that exist today, but the jobs that are going to exist in the future that we frankly don't know anything about right now. And we are kind of equipping them the right toolkits so that when they go out there, they can adapt to any kind of change. The second and equally important thing for our university is about keeping talent in Michigan. And that is particularly relevant when you consider that 90% of our student body comes from Michigan, largely from the Southeast Michigan region. But more importantly, 80% of them, after graduation, choose to work and make Michigan their home. So they are directly contributing to the talent pool of Michigan, and we take great pride in that stat. So this promises to be an excellent discussion. We have three outstanding panelists whom Murray Feldman will introduce in a moment, and we are particularly thrilled to be partnering with WWJ AM 950 and Murray Feldman in hosting this event. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the podium over to Murray.
Thank you very much, Dean, and hello, everyone. And again, thank you for being here today on such a terrible weather day. WWJ is so honored to be a part of this series because it's such an important series, and the discussions are exactly what we need to do and the discussions that we have to have in this day and age. For example, employment in southeastern Michigan, and I'm talking about the 11-county area, the region. It peaked in 2001. Then things got bad, but for the last decade we've heard things are improving every single year, and they are, it's true. But the real fact of the matter is that we're still 100,000 jobs in this region below where we were in 2001. So the mission is to find people to take those jobs, but it's hard to do when you don't even know what the future holds in technology. What skills are these people going to need? Our panel deals with that each and every day, trying to figure it out. And they're doing a good job with it, and they'll share some of the secrets with you today. Let me introduce them to you. Amy Sell is the founder and chief matchmaker at Amy Sell Talent. Amy was born and raised in Ann Arbor, holds 2 business degrees from the University of Michigan, BBA and an MBA. Amy worked as a CPA at Plant & Moran until she decided to leave numbers for people. She has since worked in the talent space at Ann Arbor Spark, University of Michigan, Ford Motor Company, Stanford Research Institute. She's worked in the office of Governor Snyder. She not only has helped create opportunities for talented employees, but she also has developed her own methods and systems to connect businesses and people, from a career counseling program at the high school level to a high-tech job portal called Pure Michigan Talent Connect, and we have used it many times as a news source. She is also a member of the faculty at the University of Michigan. Brandi Johnson is the policy advisor for secondary education and workforce development in the governor's office. Before joining Governor Whitmer, she served as the founder and executive director of the Michigan College Access Network, helping to increase Michigan's college readiness, enrollment, and completion rates. She also served in Governor Granholm's administration as college access coordinator. Originally from Arizona, she holds a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University and an MPP from the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan-Ann Arbor. Among her many awards is the Executive Leader of Excellence Award from the National College Access Network. Kavita Patke is the Director of Learning and Development at Bosch North America. She has over 10 years of progressive human resources experience across multiple positions, focused on different aspects of talent development and talent management. Kavita received her bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of California, Davis, her master's degree in human resources management from the Krannert School of Management at Purdue University. Kavita has spoken extensively on the shifts that are taking place in the mobility field and the talents that are and will be needed to implement them. Thank you all for being here on such a terrible weather day, but the sun is shining here because it's going to be a great discussion today. As we begin, I want to ask each of you, if you would, to just take a couple of moments and give us an overview of what you do every day in your job to address the topic today, which is the talent pipeline, the skills gap. Amy, we'll start with you.
Sure. So my current day job is working with a variety of employers around their specific talent needs, whether it's recruiting to fill a position or developing a training program to meet their talent needs. So I'm very employer-focused at the moment, although in the past I've worked on a lot of government and regional economic development programs.
So I am the governor's education policy advisor. So I wake up every day working on talent issues, both at the K12 and post-secondary level. I spent a lot of my time working with members of the legislature, working with stakeholders to inform our policy agenda, working with the governor's executive team to prioritize areas where we want to focus, work across state government with the state agencies that intersect with talent, and have a close partnership with our cabinet.
As Murray mentioned, I have responsibility for what happens inside of Bosch with our associate base. So everything, the programs, the development measures, the tools, resources, learning that takes place, basically what my team says is from the time somebody finishes their onboarding to the time that they retire with Bosch, we need to make sure that we offer development measures and programs to keep them engaged and keep them with Bosch and developing in their careers at any point in that employee life cycle.
As you know, I am a newsman, and I always love breaking news, and we have plenty of breaking news today from the state's capital, from Lansing. And Brandi, we're so honored to have you here on a day when the governor came out with her budget proposal, and among the three main issues is education and skills for the future. Tell us a little bit about what is going on and what she is proposing for us, because that is the first step of the career ladder. Education at a very early level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just saying it's been, a real slow week at the office between the State of the State address, the State of the Union response, and the budget message today. So at some point this weekend, I will get some rest. And the governor set up this topic certainly during the State of the State address last week. The highlight in the budget certainly is K12 education. Today, the governor proposed the biggest increase in K12 education in more than 20 years. And it also moved us closer and closer to a true weighted foundation model that recognizes that certain students are more expensive to educate. And so it included $60 million of new money to support at-risk students, $60 million for special ed, and $5 million for English language learners. And so we're really proud of the investments on K-12 as it relates to school aid. The other piece on the talent initiative that she spoke about in terms of funding is additional support for adults that are wanting to go back and attain a certificate or associate degree. And so I'm sure we'll talk more about that later, but certainly the governor led with the K-12 school aid budget today.
So government is stepping up to the table. Amy, you have said that employers also have to be at that table with government.
Yes. Some of the programs that I've seen be most successful are when the employers are clearly working with government. One of the programs I worked on at the state was a Michigan Advanced Technician Training Program where the employers would work with a college, generally community colleges, set up a model based out of the apprenticeship model in Germany where the employers would select students coming out of high school and put together a 3-year program where they would alternate between work and school. At the end of the 3 years, they would have their associate's degree in a highly in-demand field like mechatronics. The employer paid for their education and paid for them to be working on the job in this training program. So it was about a $70,000 investment per person that employer did, but they were able to handpick their labor force, train them, invest in them, and really build that pipeline through some nice partnerships with the government, but where the employer was really helping to drive and set the stage of what was needed.
And Bosch is taking a lead role in so many areas of trying to figure out what talents are going to be needed in the future. What's going on there behind the scenes that you're involved with, Kavita?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to piggyback a little bit on the apprenticeship topic, we are very excited to be launching a professional level apprenticeship program focused on software engineering in the next quarter. So we started down this journey in 2019 and felt that, we had a need to fill about 340 software-related positions within 12 months. And we know that other employers are also fighting for the talent to be able to close those kinds of gaps. So we needed a creative or a different solution to be able to close that gap. So similar to what Amy was saying, we felt it was important to be able to develop this program in-house, build up the skills that we need to help close our gap in the future, and then set up these apprentices for success coming out of the program into full-time software engineering positions within 1 year.
By the way, I want to mention that everybody has a card on a seat next to them or the seat where they are. If you'd like to ask a question, just jot it down on the card, raise your hand, and we'll get it up here, and we'll take care of it with our experts. Brandi, in order for young people in this community to get anywhere in any kind of a company, they're going to need secondary education. It's essential. So many things are going on in that area. We had been one of the only states that didn't have a goal in secondary education. And I don't want to embarrass you, but you were very instrumental in changing that around.
Yeah, so as was mentioned, I was the founder and executive director of an organization called the Michigan College Access Network, or MCAN, which as a nonprofit organization separate from government really prioritized post-secondary educational attainment, helping people, especially low-income people, for people that are first in their family to go to college, and people of color to earn credentials beyond a high school diploma, whether that be a technical certificate, an applied associate degree, bachelor's degree, and beyond. And in the governor's, I volunteered on the governor's transition team between the time she was elected in November of 2018 and her first State of the State and budget, which was a year ago, and certainly prioritized or helped her to prioritize what a higher ed agenda looked like within the context of post-secondary educational attainment. And so a year ago, at her very first State of the State address, she very boldly set a post-secondary attainment goal of achieving 60% adult attainment by the year 2030. Our baseline at that moment was 45%. So it's certainly a very bold and ambitious goal. And it was a couple days later that she called to offer me this this job. And after she kind of adopted this work that I had been eating, living, breathing, sleeping for the last 10 years prior, it was something I couldn't say no to. So I really came on board to the policy team with a real focus on talent, specifically post-secondary attainment and workforce development. And so since Amy was in state government, we've, of course, reorganized a little bit. And so I also got to help write an executive order that would establish what our new department that really focuses in on this area, it's called LEO, the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. So LEO is where this work really lives, led by Director Jeff Donofrio, who's had previously been in Southeast Michigan working on workforce development and talent issues. And so, 60 by 30 is our North Star as it relates to talent. It's certainly worker-oriented in that we are really focusing on help individuals get those credentials that will pay dividends in the labor market, especially as the labor market continues to shift.
I just had to ask you a question. If my research is correct, you were watching the governor on TV. And were you surprised when she mentioned the words that really
Yeah,
came
it
out of
was
your
really
mouth?
shocking. Yeah, this Bridge magazine, which is a phenomenal online newspaper, wrote a story about it when I took this job. But it was weather similar to what we are experiencing right now, except I was visiting the relatively new president of Lake Superior State University, and was planning to come down to attend the State of the State address, and there was a huge blizzard, and the Mackinac Bridge closed, and so I was stuck at a casino. And
She walked away a winner, by the way.
true story.
In this.
And that's where I watched State of the State. So I was really, I certainly was surprised by how much time the governor devoted to this topic. And obviously she ran on the slogan, fix the damn roads. But we always say her other priority is to close the damn skills gap. And so that's what I came on to work on.
It's just a damn good time here for everybody. So, Amy, seeking out people at a high school level is very important. What about getting the schools up to date? I know you and I talked at length about the German-style apprentice model. Tell us about that, and are schools up to date? Are high schools up to date?
Yeah, so the German apprenticeship model really is that partnership and helping people understand early on what the opportunities are. A number of companies focused on mechatronics, some software, some CNC programming, recruited students out of high school to participate in a 3-year program. But I think beyond that, some of the other initiatives that I think are wonderful, for instance, are My Career Quest, it's great in state government because having Michigan, you can say MI for everything, my everything. So these programs that are going on right now, thanks to a lot of the great workforce development agencies, are focused on helping high school students see the huge range of possibilities. So there's, I think, a big one in Novi and one that's going to be happening, and I think, maybe Hillsdale County area, that are really focused on bringing thousands of high school students into an exhibit space where there's dozens of different employers with very hands-on exhibits around the different types of careers so that people can really experience what they look like in very interactive, engaging ways. So I'm sure Bosch is probably involved with the ones, and it's a great way to get those high school students thinking about what they want to go into so that they can visualize, okay, how do I get there? Oh, that means college, and so I'll take advantage of the College Access Network resources, or I'll look at middle skill programs that might be more attainable. So I think there's just so much that we can do. I think career inspiration really begins at even the junior high, middle school level. But then if we keep educating high school students and guidance counselors and teachers about what those opportunities are, get people excited, then people can naturally flow into what those kind of high demand areas are.
And Kavita, you alluded to the apprentice program at Bosch. Let's get specific on what it is and how it works and where you get the people to participate in that.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, this is a brand new approach for us. So I'm going to speak a little bit to the internal mindset change that has come along with this, because we have traditionally recruited, especially in the software field, from four-year universities. And so you have a lot of individuals at managerial levels within Bosch now being forced to make a complete shift, a complete 180 mindset change, to take a look at individuals who, first of all, may not even have core software experience. Maybe they've dabbled in programming and they've decided this is cool and this is something I want to do. Or maybe through a FIRST Robotics team, which we are proud supporters of, they've discovered that maybe I have an interest in this and this is something I want to pursue. But perhaps those individuals don't have the funds to be able to go to a four-year degree. Or individuals who are able to obtain their associate's degree and are now looking for what's next. So we're very excited because we are targeting a different pool of talent than we have in the past. And through FIRST Robotics, through the teams that we sponsor, we are creating these connections going back to high school. And by placing our associates as mentors with FIRST Robotics teams, it's creating this bond and this openness about, one, what it's like to work at Bosch, and then secondly, what it's like to be an engineer at Bosch. And the other piece of it that's important for us is when we talk about the skills gap and not knowing what's coming 2-3 years down the line, where we feel we can support, especially with FIRST Robotics again, and even the apprenticeship program, we have to continue to develop the skills that are going to set up individuals for success, like learning agility and project management, communication, these foundational skills that are going to help these individuals be able to pick up new skills rapidly. So we want to build that concept into our one-year apprenticeship program along with the technical training.
All right, so this is great insight into what goes on inside companies when they're trying to figure out where we should be going in the future. And one of the programs you have is a reskilling and also an upskilling program. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, this is also brand new for us, and we recognize the importance here. And so starting in 2020, what my team is doing is meeting with each of our presidents of our businesses to really understand their strategy and their growth plans for only 1 year out, because we hesitate to go more than that because they may not even be able to figure that out or be able to articulate that. So we look more near term, and we align to understand where their business is going, what products they're focusing on, services, technology, et cetera. And from there, what my team is working on is making sure that we're offering the appropriate technical training to take existing engineers, for example, mechanical or hardware, and then based on their foundation of engineering knowledge, give them the technical training to transition them into software positions or other positions like systems engineering or AI or robotics, depending on the business need. And so we've also had to explore alternative ways of doing this beyond classroom training, face-to-face training. So we're trying to make this cultural shift as well. We are a learning organization, and that does mean the formal aspect as well as the informal to build up those skills.
And on the state level, there are programs like that that have been proposed. I'm thinking of Michigan Reconnect. And also Michigan Opportunity Program. How do they work, and what is that for? Who is that for?
Yeah, so the governor proposed 2 programs. There's legislation that have been introduced to set up both. My Opportunity they're really the same program. Both provide a tuition-free pathway through an associate degree universally. So Opportunity targets straight out of high school traditional age students, while the Michigan Reconnect program would provide a tuition-free pathway through an associate degree for working-aged adults, 25 and up, that don't yet have an associate degree to upskill so that they can get a promotion within a company, shift to a different field, move to something that is more in demand, or get a technical skill. We are dangerously close to getting Michigan Reconnect passed in this legislature. It is incredibly bipartisan in concept. In fact, the Michigan Reconnect bills that would set up the program in the House and the Senate are sponsored by, proposed in concept by the governor, but introduced in the legislature by 2 Republicans, Senator Horn from the Saginaw area and Representative Frederick from the Owasso area. And so we are really, really close. And if we are able to, so the governor talked about it in the budget today, and Budget Director Kolb did as well. So we have some revenue that's actually in our current fiscal year that is still on our balance sheets that we could use for this. $35 million would get us started on that adult program for the 2021 school year. And if we can get something on the governor's desk in the next couple of weeks, we actually really can launch in the fall. And it's incredibly exciting. Sort of side by side, so Reconnect is, a financial aid program for an individual. Another program that the governor would love to see, or I should say she proposed some funding in FY21 and certainly would negotiate this as part of a supplemental, is the Going Pro Talent Fund. So there's Going Pro, which you all might have seen like billboards, that's a marketing campaign, but there's something else called the Talent Fund, which is a fund that employers can apply to help train incumbent workers, to help them upskill. As part of that, employers commit to ensuring that the employees that receive that training are able to earn higher wages that are meaningful. And so the governor proposed that in this budget today, but we're hopeful that as part of a skill strategy, we could get a supplemental budget, in the next couple of weeks, not wait for this budget cycle to play itself out, hopefully sometime this summer, but actually get Going Pro and Reconnect up and going. And we would become really only the second state after Tennessee to have a tuition-free community college program specifically targeted at adults. Most states do it really the other way around. They start a community college, we don't use the word free college, but a tuition-free pathway to an associate degree is something we're all more comfortable with. But most states start that for high school students, and that's potentially an easier political win. That's not been the case. The legislature's real interest in this program has been focused on that working-aged adults to help them, upskill and get a great job or a better job. And so we may go about this backwards, but we're very hopeful that Reconnect will get some traction in the next couple of weeks.
As we look at what the talent of the future is going to need, we're talking about a lot of skills. You just said upskill, Brandi, and we've talked about soft skills, that they're more important today than they ever were before, and you've said that they shouldn't be called soft skills, they should be called critical skills.
Yeah, they're not soft. I mean, they're, so I mean, I've changed my vernacular in the field to call them critical skills because they are just critical. They're essential in the 21st century economy, no matter what field you are in. And I think that, there's lots of environments where you can build your critical skills, certainly on the job, as was described, but certainly I think our training institutions, whether it be a community college, a university, like this one we are at today, really have done a really great job in incorporating those critical skills into curriculum, whether it's at like a certificate level, an associate degree, a bachelor's degree, or beyond.
And Kavita, when we talk about soft skills, Bosch has added one to the list, and that one is leadership.
Yes.
I mean, we talk about soft skills meaning ability to problem solve, ability to continue to learn, ability to work in a team, but there is a leadership skill that goes throughout the company.
Agreed. Yeah, we, over the last 2 years, we've also tried to figure out which of these, I like the use of critical skills. I was thinking earlier today what to call them, but what critical skills to really focus on and drive, and leadership has come up over and over again. And for us, it's so important that regardless of what your title is or what level you are in the organization, we all have the ability to lead. And we actually, in our Bosch North America, what we call our success factors, building up leadership at all levels of the organization is one of our success factors. So that's how important it is to us. So we have several initiatives. One is called Leading Where You Are, and it's an internal platform for all of our associates to access that contains learning resources around 7 different characteristics that we've benchmarked externally and internally that all drive towards creating this leadership presence. And these are soft skills and critical skills like communication, project management, continuous improvement. And we were talking before the panel, what we like to say within Bosch is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable as well. And so this is something that we talk about a lot. And I think especially the world we're living in today where there is a lot of unknown, things are changing constantly. Having that comfort, being uncomfortable is extremely important as well.
Wow, I just want to bring up a Brookings report. Track the top verbs that are used in AI patents to try to figure out what skills are going to be needed in the future, because of course these are the products that are going to be out there that we're going to be using and working with every day. So an indication of these skills are these words: recognize, predict, detect, identify, determine, control, generate, classify. These are words that we're taking right out of patents. Thoughts, Amy?
Great list.
Great list. But, I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, these are things that we never thought before. We always thought that somebody would lead us along the direction, or you would go into a company and a company would tell you where to go and what to do. More emphasis now on you taking control and leading within that company, within that team, and being a proactive worker with things that we don't even need these days. So, Amy, what are you finding are some of the biggest talent gaps right now as you take a look at what companies are telling you they need and what you're trying to find out there to fit those needs?
Sure. So in the past 5 years, I've done about 700 searches. And so I have a lot of information. I kind of almost rate searches in terms of degree of difficulty. Like sometimes this is a slam dunk versus, if we find 2 people in the state of Michigan that have these skills, 10 people nationwide, I'll be lucky. And I think the highest in-demand areas are around technical skills for individual contributors. So software developers, data scientists, any kind of engineer. If you have those skills, again, what you're actually doing might change from 2 years ago to 3 years in the future. But having those technical skills so that you can analyze and assess and everything else on that list are so important. And you're sometimes, machine learning is an area that we're seeing a lot more that's related to artificial intelligence and having the ability to do high-level programming. So those technical skills are so critical. When I joined Ann Arbor Spark about 15 years ago and I was responsible for attracting and retaining and developing talent for the region, the same software developers were in demand then. They couldn't find enough. Today they're still spawning amazing new programs that Bosch is developing because it's still a shortage. So in general, when I'm giving anybody asks me career advice for what they should go into or their children, I'm always thinking software, anything IT, software in particular in the information technology space, things that are related to manufacturing. Michigan is always going to be making things, and there's lots of great opportunities around there that are CNC programming, mechatronics that are, there's a lot of clean manufacturing environments, and then healthcare. With our demographics, there's always going to be great opportunities in those 3 streams.
When we talk about healthcare, I'm reminded of tomorrow morning. We'll be up early on the radio because the government jobs report comes out for the first month of this year, for January. If this month is like all of the last 24, we will see that healthcare was the biggest creator of jobs across the country. Of course, people have to have skills for healthcare. It takes a different set of skills for that. Brandi, you were also mentioning advanced manufacturing as an area that we here in Michigan really have a need for. Once you get people in the plants and in the advanced manufacturing facilities, of course, you need more healthcare workers because we all need that. So it all ties into one another.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with Amy's read of the labor market more. Those are certainly the sectors that have, high growth, high demand, but also, will pay a living wage, which I think is really, really important. There are lots of jobs available to people with a high school diploma or less, but a job isn't a job isn't a job. There's lots of jobs available in, retail or service and hospitality, but if you can't support a family or pay rent, that's certainly problematic for our state's economic vitality. In Michigan, the Bureau of Labor Market Information and Strategic Initiatives is a really cool, sort of our own labor market analysis shop. And they put out some really great reports about those in-demand jobs, all of the ones that Amy mentioned, certainly inclusive of STEM fields more broadly. But what is really clear when they look at the top 50 jobs in Michigan that are growing with lots of openings and pay a living wage, every single one of them requires education beyond high school. There's not a single job in the top 50 where it says a high school diploma is what you need to enter this profession. 33 of the 50 really do require a bachelor's degree. But then there are certainly others where you need an associate degree. That's especially true in healthcare. Physical therapist assistants, dental hygienists are really good examples where pay a really, really good wage for only having needed an associate degree.
Anybody have questions fill out the card, raise your hand, and we'll come around and include you in the conversation. We've got one coming up here right now. In the interim, though, let me just talk about something that you mentioned about education. Learning will never stop, will it? I think what we're all saying here, and what we all agree on, is that you never will have the degree and say, thank you, and say, I'm done. It will have to continue forever. It will be a total process because everything is changing. Thoughts?
Thank goodness for book on tapes. I think that's my new favorite thing. I'm continually learning myself, but I do think it's so important. And with the availability of free online courses, great training programs, there's so many opportunities to be able to do that, and especially with mentoring. I mean, I think that's another way where if companies have mentoring programs, or if people are more junior in their career or new to a profession or company seek out mentors, that they can learn both technical skills and these critical and essential skills and learn, and then it's a benefit to the companies to transfer knowledge. There's so much win-win that can be done with continual learning.
IBM a couple of years ago reported that human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. And they said the build out of the Internet of Things will lead to the doubling of knowledge every 12 hours. How do you keep up with something like that? You have to make sure, of course, that your universities are up to date, your companies are doing what Bosch is doing and what the government is doing at a government level, but also, question here, are universities preparing the right talent in the right way? And if not, what should they be doing? What do you think? How do you see that? And it's okay, you can say whatever you'd like here. Because it's all learning. It never stops, and we're learning here today.
I wasn't sure who you,
All of you.
All of us, okay.
Nobody can get out of this one.
Well, one thing that I've seen that I think is a good trend in a few universities is around action-based learning. So when organizations, universities really promote internships, like I know that they do here, or co-op experiences, or project-based learning opportunities where people can work on a team, work with a company, solve a problem, whether it's a marketing study, an accounting study. I think those are great ways to help prepare the students and get them exposed to companies. Companies are engaged. So I think the more corporate partnerships with educational institutions, the better would be one thing I'll throw out there.
You know, one thing I would say that is I think universities are starting to realize needs to be a paradigm shift is really serving the adult market. Michigan is a depopulating state. Every year we have a smaller and smaller graduating class of 18-year-olds, and universities by and large were designed for 18-year-olds that are coming in full-time, largely living on campus. That's certainly not today's student. When looking at all types of post-secondary institutions, a lot of students are parenting, a lot of students are working, a lot of students are older. And so I think that shifting, especially at the four-year level, sort of that shift to that different customer is something that needs to be paid attention to. I certainly don't want to steal their thunder, but stay tuned for an announcement next week from a large university on the west side of the state that is, going to announce something really bold on this front, and it's very, very exciting.
Wow, as we like to say, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Kavita.
I can only echo what's been said so far. I think I'll take maybe a different angle to it. So for Bosch, for our associates, we do offer a continuing education program where they can receive reimbursement for going back to school as long as the degree or the program is tied to their current job, or upskilling or reskilling. And what we're finding more and more is that online programs are becoming more popular. What we haven't changed with our approach and our policy on that is that the online program must contain some element of what you get in a face-to-face, and that may not mean coming physically face-to-face, but that does mean working on a team project virtually. It might mean going on a global semester. It might mean getting exposure outside of just that online setting, because what we find in at work every day is that is becoming more and more of the way we work. It is virtual, it is team-based, it might be agile, so you're going to be working with many different people who you may not ever meet. And so I think making sure that as universities introduce more online programs, we still can't lose that human touch or that human connection, the importance of that, because I think that is one of the critical skills. Even with the introduction of technology, we cannot lose the human factor in that.
And you know what, as you say that, I'm thinking of a white paper that I received from the company EdCore, which is in Oakland County. EdCore provides programs for companies to help them help their employees pay for college, pay for secondary education, improve themselves, repay for some of the things. And one of the things the white paper said was it also helps, when companies do what Bosch is doing, to provide a diverse workforce. They say the people who are left out are many times minorities and women who have so much debt that they can't afford the education, they can't deal with the education they need to get the jobs that they should have and deserve and can support a family well. So that when companies do what your company is doing, and many of them are doing that now, it also helps the company provide a more diverse workforce. So when all of this new idea comes into the workplace, it kind of changes the culture a little bit. And it doesn't matter what product you have. It has to be sold, it has to be marketed, it has to be produced. And Kavita, you and I were talking about how that changes a culture in a business, and that your company is working to create that right now and to work with that. Explain that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to this learning first mindset for us. And it ties also into the apprenticeship program and the concept of leading where you are. It's a huge shift. And for Bosch, especially in the mobility space or automotive, it's requiring us to take a look at our products, look at our service portfolio, and it is requiring new skills to be developed. And so this cultural shift of being able to learn where you are anytime, our team has to make sure that we can offer our associates those resources to be able to actually do that, which then impacts them on their job. And so that's kind of where we are, and we're even promoting everything from mentoring programs to just a simple conversation. Meet up and talk to somebody you don't know over lunch or over coffee, because you don't know what you can learn from that experience. And I just had an experience myself where through a organization, Magma, that I'm part of the governing board for, I made a connection with somebody from Toyota, and that individual has an interest in learning more about Bosch and our innovation processes and procedures, and I was able to make that connection to our business development team, who didn't know what Toyota's interests were. So I think it's a win-win for Bosch and Toyota to make that connection. And I'm learning also about our relationship with Toyota as one of our customers. So you don't know where a single conversation can lead. And so we're trying to promote even something as simple as grabbing a cup of coffee or lunch with somebody you don't know as a form of learning.
And so many of the, I'm sorry, do you want to jump in?
No,
No.
just excited.
Feel free to jump in. In so many of the conversations, we hear, when we get right down to the basic skills that you need, not the soft skills, but the actual hard skills, if you will, digitalization, and how important that's going to be. How do you grasp that, and where are we today with that? And I'll throw it out to anybody here.
Yeah, maybe I can start with that one.
Sure.
So this is also part of our cultural shift. I think the buzzword right now is digital transformation. It's Internet of Things or IoT, and that means something different depending on who you talk to. So for us, it's making sure that we clearly know what that means and ultimately how that impacts our people and our products. So we try to emphasize understanding what that means for you in your role. That means something different for those of us in human resources. It means something different for those in finance or engineering. So we're trying to also show how this digital transformation impacts you where you are, and basically trying to communicate the why behind why you should care, because your job is going to be shifting. So then it ties back to this learning first culture.
I guess I'd add on to that. When I initially heard the word digital, I was thinking, oh, it's great to exploit any digital skills that you can, and again, encouraging people to go more onto that STEM side. But then listening to Kavita, it really made me think too about some of the digital transformations that I've been involved with on the HR side, and just using technology more effectively for HR people. And we often aren't doing programming, but understanding that technology and making our jobs more efficient. Obviously, you're taking some work off and you're adding other things on, and that can be scary and threatening to people. But I think in almost all professions, there's an opportunity to embrace that information technology, those different software programs, having systems connect to each other, and facilitating those transformations can help anybody, even again, if you're not doing the coding. So.
Let me stay with you, Amy, and ask you what issues you're finding when you try to bring people into Michigan. The reason I ask this is because just a couple of weeks ago, I was with people from the Detroit Regional Partnership, and they're trying to do that on a regional basis. And they say it's amazing because there are so many people in this country who believe that the city of Detroit is still in bankruptcy. Of course, we're not. Things are really doing well in the city of Detroit and going well. What kinds of reactions do you get?
I love this question because I think there is a stereotype, oh no, and things have gotten a lot better in the last 15 years that I've been involved with this. But for every single position that I post, I always get people from outside of Michigan that want to take it, that apply to the jobs. I often get people coming to me directly saying they want to move here. And sometimes Detroit in particular. They're like, I want to move to Detroit, I love the vibe. I want to move. Sometimes it's people that want to move back home. They're from Michigan. They want to come back for family reasons. But it's really becoming more of a talent destination than people think. And again, for me on the ground, working on job postings and recruiting people, I see it all the time. Now, I'm not calling on everybody and trying to convince people that are happy somewhere else to come here. But it's amazing how many people, again, apply to those jobs. I never have a problem finding people that want to move to Michigan. Another little anecdote, there's a company called KLA. They're involved with the software, silicon manufacturing industry. They moved to Michigan, to Ann Arbor. I played a support role in that, providing them information on the workforce when they were doing their site selection meetings. They moved here, and I've been worked with a few of the different managers on coming here, and they've had a lot of, they're exceeding their numbers in terms of how many jobs they're putting into Ann Arbor. People love it. People from California have been making the move and are excited about it. Again, if somebody has a dual career and the partner is gainfully employed in California and in Milpitas and their kids are in school and all their families there, again, those people are going to have a hard time leaving. Again, one more little anecdote, since I'm so passionate about this subject, since I've been working on talent attraction for so long, my view is that there's, everybody has an individual calculus in terms of, is the job more important or is the place more important? And I don't think you can nuance into like, oh, everybody focuses on the job, or no, we have to be a talent magnet like California or we'll never attract people. I think it's totally a bad argument to look at that. Again, everybody's situation is different. And some people are very focused on the job. They'll move anywhere for the right career opportunity, to use their degree, to follow the money. And then there are some people that absolutely won't move within a 5-mile radius because of their personal situation. But most people, it's a blend. And if there's, I think Caterpillar was having a hard time attracting people to Peoria, Illinois, because there was nothing there. And people would move there but then leave. So if an area has nothing going for it, within a 50-mile radius, you're kind of in trouble. Every place in Michigan can provide great opportunities for a live-work-life balance that's incredible. If you want to be in a big city, if you want to be in rural, it's easy to move around. So Michigan wins on place, I think, all the time, unless you absolutely can't be in a place that's below 60 degrees every once in a while. And on the other hand, on the career side, we have so many opportunities in so many areas, and the wonderful state governments that we've had, administrations over the past couple of years, have done a great job attracting new businesses, making it business friendly, and supporting those businesses. And again, I worked with Governor Snyder, and I know under Governor Whitmer, things are just, we're in great hands, and I think the future is so bright for Michigan.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that, so I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. I defy every trend. I was a young person that had a college degree that willingly moved to Michigan and then stayed. And so for me, that was not my plan. I had came here for grad school, so to Ann Arbor, obviously an incredible institution. My degree program was 2 years, and I thought I would be on a plane back to Arizona before the ink was dry on my degree. But I, fell in love with this state and the job opportunities, and I'm now married with 2 tiny kids, and I want to make a home here. So anecdotally, I certainly agree that this is attractive. On a less anecdotally, and just building off of what Amy said, 2 of the things that we can really lean in on here in Michigan is obviously our natural resources that I don't particularly enjoy being outside, so that's like not something for me, but a lot of people do, and like to
Even on days like today.
yeah, especially on days like today. So, but obviously our natural resources are incredible. Having the Great Lakes, other states like Colorado kind of have a similar sell to especially young people, and so that's good. But what Michigan has in spades is cost of living. You can buy a house here. You cannot in California, and so that's another, if as people are delaying buying homes or starting families because of student loan debt, which is a struggle in Michigan, at the very least, that the cost of living here is affordable and you can really afford a mortgage. And then one last piece on the student loan and sort of debt piece, which is which is incredibly problematic in an area where Michigan is not thriving. I will say, in recognition of that, the governor in her budget today proposed, just a $10 million seed to start a new revolving fund with the Department of Treasury for the state of Michigan to help people refinance student loans at a much lower interest rate. And so that is also something, it's sort of a small tackle. It's not loan forgiveness, but by being able to consolidate, refinance student loans between, $5,000 and $50,000 would be another sort of tool that we could use with young people as they're thinking about starting their lives and careers and families in Michigan.
Glad you mentioned cost of living. Michigan is 10% below the national average, 40% below Washington, D.C., 40% below Seattle, 17% below Chicago. When you look at Washington, Seattle, and Chicago, those are places where many of our residents are right now, especially Chicago. Also, I know there are efforts to streamline certain licensing to help businesses come in. There are efforts underway to do that. How big a deal is that, and what's on the drawing board for that? And also military families. I know that we talked about military families are finished with their tour of duty, and they've really been around all over, and there's no core group of support for them. They could come here. We'll be friends.
Yeah, it's interesting in that Michigan doesn't have an active military installation, military base, and so attracting people to Michigan is a little bit trickier unless you're from here. So there's definitely an element of come home to Michigan, especially if you have parents here that can help help provide support with children. One of the things that we're actively looking at right now, and other states have done this very successfully, is to recognize out-of-state license reciprocity for all of our licensed profession. This happens through LARA, and basically it trusts other states that that their licensing protocols are relatively similar to Michigan's, and so that's something we're actively exploring. At least 2 other states, Arizona and Pennsylvania, have done this, and Arizona actually has not only done it for military families, veterans, active, and spouses. But actually, they did it there for a couple of years. It worked so well, and the sky didn't fall when you accepted a nursing license from Idaho or, a plumber's license from South Carolina, that they expanded it to all people. So you can move to Michigan, or in this case, Arizona, get to work right away without the bureaucratic hassle of waiting 6 months or a year to take a training, wait for an exam to happen, pay additional fees. So we're actively working with our Veteran Affairs Agency, LARA, our Workforce Development Agency, and a bipartisan group of legislators to explore, could we offer functional license reciprocity for military families almost as a pilot.
Let me throw out another word here that we are hearing over and over today, more and more, the growth of freelancing. It's doubling every year. It's estimated by the year 2027, nearly half of all workers will be doing some kind of freelancing, either full or part-time. How does this play into where we're going? Is it possible to be a freelancer and work at an organization like Bosch?
I think so. I think a lot of it will depend on the future of our technology and where our job base is going. And I think it's interesting, the freelancing word and the concept. We're trying to internally, one of our skills that we're trying to develop kind of ties into that a little bit on the consultation side. So we're realizing that type of skill set, to be able to go into, even internally, into another department or an organization and offer your services, is becoming a skill set that we're having to develop and having to teach. And so I think it's a similar concept a little bit to that. And so we're finding internally as well that that's becoming a skill set that we have to focus on.
Amy, you're nodding. You see it. Do you see this happening?
A bit. Well, and I think the word gig economy is something
Yeah.
that you're seeing a lot of. And when I'm working with a lot of my clients, oftentimes they will be, they don't need someone full-time. They need someone for a project, part-time work. In fact, when any of my clients want to hire someone part-time, and they have a part-time need instead of a full-time need, and they're worried about, well, will I find people? It's easier to fill part-time jobs than full-time, because so many people want to do something besides working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. So when you can offer a small job, again, you have to be careful with employment classifications and 1099s versus W-2, but there's a huge opportunity for more and more people to take advantage of that, be their own boss, have some flexibility. And I think companies that kind of embrace that and look at different ways to include that, it can be cost effective for the company to bring in consultants or contractors or gig workers or freelancers, and it can really be a nice win-win for everybody.
We have a question here. Several companies have plans to open in Detroit. We've seen that parts of the workforce are not ready, qualified for entry-level jobs. This has created even greater need for qualified workers, especially in our urban areas. The investment is great, but how can we keep up with it? What programs like Reconnect, what kind of investment needs to be made to make sure these non-traditional students are ready to begin a high-tech, to get a tech certificate, given that most have been out of educational programs for years and need additional support?
Yeah, I mean, as we think about that, especially as it relates to Reconnect, we know that our workforce development agencies are going to have to play a critical role in helping adults sort of navigate, in some cases, skill up. So whether that is, help get a GED, or refresh some of those skills that have not been, utilized in a classroom environment in a long time. And so we know partnerships with workforce development agencies and our local Michigan Work Centers is going to be a really critical part of that. And in addition, I think it's just really focused and individualized kind of career counseling and planning and thinking about what's possible in the short term. What's great about working with adults is that they are really motivated to, do better for their family. They don't want to, kind of, find themselves and explore, like young people have more of a luxury of doing. They want to get in a program, get through the program, finish the program, get a better job, and earn more money. And so I think that by having some, well-informed, proactive advisors that is rooted in actual labor market data to say, look, here's a 6-month program. You will earn a certificate, and these are the employers that are hiring, and this is, very possible where your baseline skills are. That sort of data-driven and, pragmatic advising is critically important.
I'd like to talk a little bit about a program that I was involved with called Community Ventures that was launched in March of 2012 as part of the Governor Snyder's public message on safety. And it was to really help people that were looking more at entry-level jobs, but to give people a job right away and provide wraparound services to keep them in the job. And again, this wasn't for more highly skilled, but it was targeted for folks that were residents of Pontiac, Flint, Saginaw, or Detroit. They had to have some type of barrier, lack of education, lack of career history, recently returning citizens, or veterans, although a lot of veterans were in pretty good shape from other programs as well. But what this program did was partnering with employers that had an entry-level job, and they would provide career coaches, they would help with transportation, with daycare support. They would spend on average about $3,000 per person to help with retention. And they had, I think the last statistic was around 70% one-year retention rate. And then there's some great stories. There was a gentleman there who was featured in the Washington Post talking about how he had dropped out of college, or he was trying to go to college, couldn't get it, couldn't afford it, was worried about being homeless, joined Detroit Chassis, and then that put him on a path to be able to go back to college, to go, I think, into some IT field. So I love education, but I also love programs that kind of meet people where they are, help them get the job and stay in the job, and so that they can stabilize their lives, move on, and then be able to take advantage of other educational or promotional opportunities. So again, that was a program where thousands of people were successfully connected in those communities.
Right, I know we are at that time when certain people are going to have to leave to go to a 6 o'clock class. So as we wrap this up, I would just ask each of you, you've been great. Thank you so much for being here with us. But I would ask you, what's the best bit of advice that we should carry out of here from you? Kavita, I'm going to start with you because I see 4 eyes going like this.
I know I've said this already, but I really think it is so true when we talk about, again, the skills gap and where we need to focus development. And I really can only double, triple underline the comfort with being uncomfortable. And I think if you have that adaptable mindset, I think that's something we have to develop also in our students, and also something we're focusing on in our apprenticeship program. But I really think that comfort with ambiguity, and being able to adapt to situations and have that flexibility to move between situations is going to become extremely critical.
I'm certainly a broken record, but a high school diploma is not enough to compete in the 21st century in Michigan or anywhere. A high school diploma 40 years ago really was the ticket to a middle class in Michigan, more so than anywhere. That is not the reality we live in anymore. We need to be very comfortable saying to folks that you have to get something beyond high school, and the more the better, but the high school diploma or a GED or less just is frankly, a life sentence to poverty. And that's, we need to be really consistent with our messaging to all children, not just our own children. That education has to continue beyond high school. High school is not a terminal endpoint anymore. It's kind of the stepping stone to what's next. And that what's next can look like a lot of different things, and they're all positive and value add.
I guess I would say hope. Hope that no matter what talent challenge it is, whether it's unskilled Detroiters or needs for more software developers, there are programs and initiatives and steps that everyone can take, especially government officials, employers, parents, hosting job shadows. Everyone can help solve these challenges, and they're all a little bit, there's so many of them, and they're all different, and there's not really a one-size-fits-all solution, but there's just so much hope that that much progress can be made to me.
Thank you all so very much for being here. Thank you for being here on such a cold and snowy night. We appreciate it. WWJ appreciates being a part of this series. I think it's been great discussions, and if you saw I was busy here while they were talking, taking notes, you will hear some of this on the radio, that's for sure. Thank you, everyone, and drive safely on the way home.